Hi everyone, welcome to the Introduction to Phonics workshop today. We usually offer this workshop face-to-face, but due to the current circumstances, we hope that this online alternative will be just as supportive for you. In this workshop, we will be talking about what phonics actually is. We'll be giving you a clearer understanding of our approach and expectations of home learning. And we will be also talking about how we teach phonics in school. So what is phonics? Phonics is essentially a way of us teaching your child how to learn how to read and write. Phonics is a method of teaching children that words are made up of lots of sounds. It teaches the children the sound each letter makes and how to blend them together to read words and how to segment them, or we say sometimes pull them apart, to write them. We will discuss these two different methods, blending and segmenting, in more detail in just a moment. In phonics, we identify sounds in spoken words. We don't use letter names, so for example, in the word cat, we would say the sounds k, a, t, rather than c, a, t, because although these are the letter names to help children learn how to spell, this doesn't help them with their phonics in being able to hear and identify the sounds. In phonics, we also recognise each of the common spellings of the sounds, so in the sound k, we would use the letter name C. We also learn how to blend phonemes, or otherwise known as sounds, into words for reading, and we segment words into phonemes for spelling. How do we teach phonics? So in school we have phonic lessons every single day. We usually do our phonics at the start of the day, and we have between a 15 and 20-minute session. As the year progresses, our phonics session will get slightly longer, and there will be different activities for the children to do depending on their ability in phonics. This layout here shows you what a typical phonics lesson looks like. We always begin our phonics sessions with a revisit and review. This is where we go through all of the sounds that we have learnt from the previous session. We also go through any camera words and keywords, also known as tricky words or high frequency words, with the children. Then in the session we will teach something new, so this could be a new letter, so the new sound, and we will also teach them the Jolly Phonics story that goes with the sound. This helps children to remember and to retain the sounds through a fun and playful way. Every sound comes with an action, so you might have noticed your child, when saying the sound ah, pretending to climb ants up their arm. And that's because we've used the Jolly Phonics song with the sound ah to help them memorise it in a fun and playful way. Within the teach aspect of the phonics session, we will also include learning new camera words or keywords. And the reason we do this is so that the children can then apply them later on when reading sentences. Within the teach session, we also model how to write the letter. So in our school, we use a cursive handwriting font. So all letters start with an entry stroke up, and then we continue with how to form the letter. So for example, with the letter A, or the sound A, we would start with an entry stroke up, over, stop, back, around, up to the top, down and flick. And we can also show you some videos on how we teach our handwriting in school if you think that this would be beneficial. Then we move on to the practice phase of the phonics session, where we then have a go at reading words with the new sound that we've learnt. We practice reading and maybe spelling words with the new sound. So for example, with the sound a, maybe we would have a go at writing the word at, or an, or and. And later on, as we learn more and more sounds, we then have a go at writing words or simple captions or sentences. We then apply our knowledge throughout our planned activities by having a go at reading sentences. So we may, for example, have a simple sentence like, I can hop. For example, if we were learning the camera word I, we would have a go at using a highlighter to find the camera word, and then we would continue to having a go at sounding out the rest of the words in the sentence. In phonics, there are many phases. Phase 1 is the first phase of phonics, and this is usually a phase that is taught. However, at Wheatfield, we do still continue with Phase 1 activities throughout the whole year because we know that this is a really crucial part of phonics. Phase 1 is all about hearing and tuning into sounds. It develops children's speaking and listening skills, and it lays the foundations for really strong phonics. It's a crucial stage that needs to be secure to maximise the learning when moving on to Phase 2 phonics. Phase 1 includes all of these different aspects. So it includes being able to listen to environmental sounds and discriminate between them. For example, sounds of birds, cars, aeroplanes, and being able to identify what they are. And then this flows into instrumental sounds, which is very similar, but just using instruments, body percussion, rhythm and rhyme, alliteration, voice sounds, and then finally aspect 7, the oral blending and segmenting stage. Now this stage of phonics is really crucial because if your child is working at the level where they have their word box and they can recognise the sounds but they can't yet hear the words, this is what they need more practice with, being able to orally blend. So this is a really crucial part of phonics that if your child is struggling to blend, then this is what they may need. So oral blending is basically being able to put sounds together to hear words. Not necessarily reading and recognising sounds, but more the oral side of it. So for example, I may sit down with a child and we may look at this picture here of the farm and I may say simple things like, I can see a duck. Can you see a duck? And help them to try and figure out what it is that I'm trying to say for them to then hear the word duck. You may also have little games like a feelie bag where you put simple objects in there or toys from around your house. So for example, you could say, what's in my bag today? Or I have got a car. What is a car? And then see if they can put their hand into the bag and find a car. This is another little simple activity where you can make a little robot at home. And again, the same sort of thing, where you have a selection of picture cards and you say, can you give the robot the sock? Can you hear the word sock? And see if they can then basically put that word into the robot's tummy. It's just basically practicing being able to hear a word through sounding it out, but just in a fun and practical way. It's not about being able to recognise the sounds at this phase. So if your child is still struggling to read words, this is what they need more practice with. We are now working on Phase 2 phonics in class with all of the children. So Phase 2 phonics is where children begin recognising sounds. So sounds are broken down into various steps because we are following a programme called Letter and Sounds. So Set 1 began with the sounds S, A, T and P. We have worked through all of these sounds so far and we are currently working on Set 5. We will be finishing Phase 2 this term, which is term 2. And then we will be consolidating all of these sounds before we then move on to Phase 3, which we will talk about in just a moment. So these sounds, it's really important that the children say the sound. So for example, S, rather than the letter name S. And this is because they really need to be able to hear the sound, because this is what they need to read words when they're blending. Every sound has an action with it because we follow Jolly Phonics to make it fun and practical. So for example, S is a snake, so we pretend to wiggle our hand like it's a snake in the grass. And every song comes with every sound comes with a really fun song, which you can find on YouTube if you just type in Jolly Phonics and then whichever sound you'd like to look at. In Phase 2 phonics, we also teach these camera words, which are also known as high frequency words or tricky words. Camera words have to be memorised, so these are the camera words that we will be learning in Phase 2. So they are I, the, no, to, go and into. It's really important that your child understands what these words are, so in class we practice having a go at putting these words into sentences. For example, I may hold up the word the and ask the children to talk to their friend and try and put the word the into a sentence. For example, I went to the park. We also teach keywords which can be sounded out, but if they can be memorised just like the camera words, it will help develop reading speed and fluency. Within Phase 2 phonics, once the children have learned all of these various sounds, camera words and keywords, they will then be able to access and read simple captions and sentences. They begin with quite simple captions, for example, a cat in a hat, and then they build up in difficulty with having camera words in them as well. We practice in school having a go at reading simple sentences like this and matching them to pictures to help children with their understanding. A couple of key points here with phonics and supporting it at home. It's really important that we teach the pure sound when saying sounds. For example, the sound s makes the sound s, not s. And with lots of other sounds, for example, t is t, not t. And the reason that we think this is really important is because when children come to write it, they will often write the t, and then they will write as well. So if they're writing a simple word, for example, like tap, they'll write app rather than app. So therefore they'll be adding extra sounds because that's what they think they can hear. So it's really important that we teach pure sounds. We also teach children how to write in cursive handwriting, which includes these entry strokes on all of the lowercase letters. We also don't join any of the letters in reception. This is something that they start to do when they're in year 1. It's really important that we teach the children the entry strokes and the exit strokes so that they are confident in their letter formation. Joining is something that they do once they move to year 1. We practice handwriting with the children regularly in school, and if this is something that you'd like to also support at home, we have some handwriting sheets that you can download from our class page. Next, I'm going to talk about Phase 3 phonics, which is where the children will learn even more sounds. So Phase 3 is also a phase that we do in reception. So we usually start this in term 3, which is after Christmas. These are the sounds that we will learn in Phase 3. And then we will be starting something where we learn all about digraphs. Now, digraphs are basically when you have two letters that come together, but they make one sound. So, for example, this digraph here, it wouldn't be a k and a h anymore, because when you see these two sounds together, these two letters together, sorry, it makes one sound, which is ch. Okay? Now, I remember when I was training as a teacher, that some of these, when you look at them, you're not necessarily sure what they are. So there is a video on our class page where it explains all of the different sounds that you can look at to support you with recognising these at home with your child. Phase 3 also has more camera words that we teach the children. So these are the camera words that are in Phase 3 as well. And in Phase 3, we will also be continuing to learn how to read and write simple captions and sentences, including the Phase 3 sounds. So for example, in this sentence here, we've got the camera word here, he. So in our phonics session, what we would often do is we would look at any of the camera words. So you've got he in this one, as well as the. We would then next look for any keywords that we recognise. So this is where it really helps reading fluency, because if you can see within this one sentence, there are words that the children can just say from memory. It will help with reading speed, fluency and understanding. So within this simple sentence of he has fish and chips on the dish, there are several words that can be just said by sight. Now all you have to do with the rest of the sounds is be able to sound them out. So we use something called sound buttons, where we imagine that there are little buttons underneath each of the sounds, because it helps us to focus on the word that we are on rather than moving ahead and not blending it. It's really important that they do blend the word that they're on so that they're not rushing ahead, because otherwise they may not understand what they have read. So for example, in this sentence here, we've got he, has, he has, and then we'll move on to the next word, and then when we come on to this one here, this is actually a digraph, So we put a line under it like that. And the reason we do that is to help the children understand that this is a digraph, which means that there are two letters that make one sound. So this would be fish, fish. He has fish and then again we would look for the digraph in the word. So we've got a ch here, ips, chips, chips. He has fish and chips on the, and then finally dish, dish. Now, if they were to sound this out and not notice that it's a digraph, this is what would happen. Dish. And therefore, it would be a word that they may not understand. So you could then say, oh, I wonder if that maybe is a digraph. Have another go. Dish, to hear the word dish. We do so much practice on this and being able to recognise digraph that they actually become experts in this and often notice them before us. So we've talked a little bit about the sign buttons there, but just for another example, as we are currently working in phase 2 phonics, this is the stage that we are at. So here we would be just looking at one letter making one sound. So in this word here we have the sounds t, p, to hear the word top. When we move on to phase 3, we will then be looking for the digraph, so k, and the digraph o, t, k, oat, to hear the word coat. And then finally, within phase 3, if I just click back, you can also see that there will be some more digraphs, but then also some sounds that have 3 letters in, and these are called trigraphs. So with tri, it's sort of a 3, so 3 letters, but then they make one sound. So if we go back to here, in this word here, if we see this one here, this is I trigraph, so we'll read it as night, night. Then finally we have phase 4 phonics. So really in reception we stop mainly when we get to the end of phase 3. However, we do begin phase 4 in the final summer term in term 6. This is to ensure that children are getting ready and prepared for their transition into year 1. It also extends children who are perhaps ready for the next phase of their phonics. But phase 4 really is a chance to consolidate sounds, to also learn how to write longer words, and to tune into more of those sounds within longer words. In reception, this is the sort of expectation that we are working through across the year. So we begin with being able to write simple CVC words. We then build this up to being able to apply this to writing simple sentences. And then later on in the year, we'll try and apply this to writing simple stories and more. You will notice within this piece of writing here that a child did a couple of years ago in my class. You will see words such as made here, that although is not spelt correctly, but actually in reception this would be acceptable because it's phonetically plausible, which means that the child has applied their sound. So here we've got m, we've got the digraph a and the sound d at the end to hear the word and write the word made. So this would be acceptable in reception. Words such as time, there, were, these are actually camera words that we teach in phases 4 and 5. So these ones would need to be spelt correctly if a child was working at an exceeding level in writing. We aim for the children to be sort of at this stage by the end of the year, and working at a greater depth level, this is what we would expect. So just to recap on blending and segmenting. So blending is basically how we can recognise the letters, sounds in a written word, and then merge it or blend it together to then pronounce the word. For example, in the word cup, we would say the sounds k, up to hear the word cup. And then segmenting is basically the opposite, where we would use this to write a word or spell a word. So this is where we chop up the word and we identify the individual sounds and then write them down. So for example, the word cup, we would sound this out and hear k, up, and then be able to write it down. So we're now going to move on to ways that you can support your child with their phonics at home. So we send home letter and sound booklets, and in your child's letter and sound booklet they will receive word boxes, which are the strips of words that have sounds on that they have to sound out and blend together to hear the words. Once your child is able to read their word box securely and confidently, and not through memorisation, because remember the word boxes are all about the recognition of sounds rather than memorising the words, then you can put those into the yellow communication boxes and we will check them in school. And then they will also receive keywords, and the keywords are the ones that your child can learn to memorise, because these are words that will come up often when they are reading books and writing simple sentences. So the keywords also include camera words. We suggest that you hear your child read once per day, and we send home one reading book each week. You can also have a go at practicing recognising and writing their sounds, so you should have a copy of all the sounds that we've got in school, and you can also download these from our class page on the website, or ask us for another copy if you'd like some more. You can also practice writing the sounds and practicing the cursive handwriting. Also, just developing a love for reading, enjoying books together, and really just allowing your child to have the time to enjoy stories, laugh and have fun with them. So this is why we send home library books each week. So your child will be able to go to the library and choose a book of their choice. And we would suggest that these are stories that you read to your child, perhaps at bedtime or other quiet, relaxing times when you have together. And we change those once per week in school. We please ask that you write in your child's reading record book. So these are the reading record books here, the yellow books that your child will have. And in there we write what we've given your child. So for example, the title of a book that we've lent them. And then each week we check in school what they've done at home, and we use a stamp or another sort of tick, or we will sign our name just to acknowledge that they have been reading at home. These stamps count towards our reading bug challenge, and this is all about being able to catch the reading bug and enjoy reading at home. Then what we do with those stamps is we add them up, and then once they reach every 10, so every 10, 20, 30, 40 and so on, they will get a certificate. And once they then reach 50 reads, they get to go to see Mr. Winterburn in his office and choose a book that they can keep forever. Now, we suggest that you really have fun with phonics, because it is such a lovely and important part of their development and learning at school. Reading really is the key to unlock so many other things, so have fun with it. For example, use the games that you've got and resources at home. So for example, Pop-Up Pirate, you could have a go at writing the sounds on them, you could write camera words on them, and then encourage your child to say what it is before they put it into the Pop-Up Pirate game. You may use something like Jenga blocks, and again do the same thing, write sounds or camera words on them. If you try and do maybe some phonics outside, like getting some chalks, having a go at writing sounds outside, that would be amazing. You can also use this with, for example, using a paintbrush and a little pot of water, and your child can go over the chalk sounds and make them disappear. So it's sort of a bit of magic as well. Simple things like just using your sound cards and playing Snap with them. You can make the sound cards with your child to also practice the handwriting. This is also another lovely activity where you've got sort of 3 hula hoops. You can put sounds in them, and then they have to jump through the sounds to then hear the word. So for example, if you had the sounds here, d, o, g, they could jump through the sounds and then hear the word dog. So really it's just about having fun. The benefits of home learning. So home learning really directly involves you with your child's learning and development. It fosters a really productive and positive homeschool partnership, so you know what's going on in school, and you're supporting the things that we're doing in school, and again we can do that with you at home and give you the support that you need to support your child's reading. It also develops positive attitudes to learning as a life skill rather than just school-based, and it also just really gives your child that key one-to-one time with you to practice and have the additional time. It really is so important. I hope I've covered most of everything that you needed to know about phonics today, but if there's anything at all that you need, please just pop in and see us, send us an email. We are more than happy to help, and we're always here to support you and your child with their phonics learning. On our class page, there are also lots of things on there that you can look at, download and watch to support you further with phonics. For example, video links, which include the sounds and how to pronounce them, as well as some videos on handwriting as well. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much for listening and taking the time.